Before we start, I want to state that this is not a bashing of mobile flight simulators. I came from mobile flight simulators myself. They were my first foray into the world of flight simulation more than 10 years ago. I made the switch to desktop flight sims fairly recently in 2021, and I've never looked back ever since. In this video, I'll talk a bit more about how the switch was like for me and why I think the desktop is the vastly superior platform for flight simming. So this video is for those of you who have a PC or intending to get a PC, or if you're simply interested to hear the discussion. And the more hardcore of a simmer you are, the more applicable this video will be for you. So first of all, fidelity of almost everything, especially aircraft systems. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about graphics here. This is kind of obvious that one will be superior to the other. So let us instead examine things from the perspective of aircraft systems. Now, I'd say that I've quite extensive experience in both mobile and desktop flight sims. And one thing I realized is that it's hard to know just how wide the gap is in system fidelity unless you've flown in both of them. Let's take a look at infinite flight. Okay. Almost all aircraft have the same sort of systems page UI, where you press the button on the UI, and you have a master battery, you have APU on some aircraft, lights, nav radios you can tune, and autopilot that can hold heading, speed, altitude, vertical speed, and meet speed restrictions. Sorry, not speed restrictions, altitude restrictions, and that's basically it. With a properly simulated aircraft in MSFS or Explain however, you can do a full cold and dark setup. You can flick all the switches, push all the buttons, you can do the real world, and you might be yeah, obviously right. But let me tell you, this makes such a difference, not just to the immersion, but the educational factor. Because when you flick a switch, eventually you can ask yourself, why? And then that's where the learning starts. The less you got to do, the less you question, the less you learn. If you want to get as close as you can to real world aviation, desktop flight sims are the way to go. For me, my first airliner add-on was the fly-by-wire A32NX. This, by the way, is free and open source. And when I jumped into MSFS in 2021, there was just so much more to do uh, and be involved in. Yeah, so much more to learn as well. You learn that VNAV, or in Airbus terms, managed climb and descent. You learn that what actually is. There's something called the flight mode annunciators. There are the ECAM pages, electronic centralized aircraft monitoring system. There's the entire flight management system setup. That you need to put in the weights, set up your flight plan, and any reasonably good add-on for a desktop flight sim will require you to put in the effort to learn the aircraft systems. But this is an extremely rewarding process, and it's enjoyable if you love aviation. The second thing I want to talk about is the add-on ecosystem. So, third-party devs like PMDG, Phoenix, A2A, Tolis, Flight Factor, Hotstart, these guys take desktop flight sim to the next level. Fully simulated systems as per the real aircraft. You can use real-world tutorials, videos, training, and if you see them do something in real life, you can do it in your sim. Right? Characteristics of these aircraft, they are properly simulated, like pitch and power values, what the aircraft feels like, flap extension, retraction, handling characteristics. For example, the 737NG, you got ineffective speed brake, especially at low speeds. You got the elevator deadband on rotation. You got pretty large thrust pitch coupling, and on the 777, you got very stable yet responsive and nimble aircraft because of the C-Star-U fly-by-wire. You got things like blip trim. On the 320, the fly-by-wire is different. You got the 1G flight path philosophy. You can hear the PTU going off. All these sorts of things, they're simulated faithfully. And unless there's a bug, everything works just like it should in the real plane. You know, you got an autopilot flight director system that has gives you accurate guidance in both pitch and roll channel. You got to add in custom waypoints in the FMC program, approaches, offsets, all these things. Push toga and go around, or advance the thrust to toga detent if you're on Airbus, and you make the real FMA callouts, the real world FMA callouts. Proper energy management on descent, proper planning, controlling the the aircraft's vertical speed on the light go down after you push toga, especially with a low stop altitude. These are things that real world pilots have to manage, and sometimes they actually can find it difficult if you read those incident reports. All these things take it to the next level. Your knowledge and understanding of how airliners work and pretty much all aspects of aviation, it will tremendously increase. You will have that insight into what goes on behind that flight deck door. And by the way, that's just normal operating procedures. There's the whole world of non-normals, engine failure at V1, hydraulic fluid leakage, rapid decompression, all these things that you can challenge yourself with if you wish to. Okay. Also, you know, these are air, airplanes, right? These add-ons, but there are also people who do airports, scenery packages, and many other add-ons. These things to have accurately placed landmarks, cues, lightings. For example, Juno, right? Juno, you approach runway 08 because of the poor weather in the Alaskan Panhandle, right? Very often you'll be right down to minimums. So this sequence flashing lights, they'll guide you in. These things exist in those add-on sceneries. Uh, uh, JFK, the Canarsie flashing lights, those approaches, you will use those to guide you in the visual approach. And when you use these together with real-world charts, you read the NOTAMs that you can get from SimBrief. It's all very immersive when everything comes together as a package. The third thing is miscellaneous stuff like weather. And other stuff like proper precipitation, low visibility operations, contaminated runways. So you need to know, what the braking action figures in the ATIS actually mean. Icing conditions, towering cumulonimbus clouds that you actually have to deviate around. If not, you're going to get severe turbulence, wake turbulence, even for some simulators. And some add-ons like the Phoenix A320, they even simulate compressor stalls or high engine vibrations if you don't do proper eye shedding procedures. Yeah. And I know that, there is live weather too in Infinite Flight, but the weather is quite tame lah. Okay, to put it frankly, the simulation at least. Yeah, you don't really get that feeling that wow, this is true to life. This depiction of the weather is true to life. And when they get it right, when these sims like MSFS explained, when they get it right, it really looks and feels like the real world. Yeah, and there are those actual challenges associated with it, like for example braking action, something you don't have in Infinite Flight. And also another big topic, aircraft handling, how the aircraft handles in flight and on the ground. So this is where actually Explain, I think Explain really excels over Microsoft Flight Sim, like crosswind takeoffs, landings, engine outs. The Sim's flight dynamics engine is just it's more open. Not more open. It perhaps is more advanced, and add-on developers have the ability to tweak things to get it exactly right. And these are people who have studied these planes for decades. They have a lot of experience in that. Yeah, and when you have a properly simulated aircraft together with good hardware, real world pilots, right? They often say that yes, okay, you can never really get exactly the simulator feeling like the real aircraft, but it comes very, very close. The fourth thing is air traffic control. So, yes, air traffic control exists in flight. Okay, if you get the Pro subscription, same thing for weather. You only get it with the Pro subscription, but it's on a different level if you get VATSIM and IVAO. So these are things that you get access to with a desktop flight sim, and it really takes it to another level. You have controllers who are, sometimes they are real world controllers operating in that tower, in that controlling facility, using accurate phraseology because it's mostly done by voice. In fact, all of it is done by voice unless you choose to do it via text. Uh, and real world procedures, air traffic flows, operations, right? I've flown into busy events in both Infinite Flight and VATSIM, and it's just different. When it's done all over voice, you hear the different accents, you have to reference charts. It's high workload situation on landing, rollout, you got to contact ground expeditiously, you got to dial in the frequency, taxiway signage, you got to read it. Okay, there you go, that's our whole shot. Taxi this, whole shot of this, give way to the company traffic, blah, blah. All this is extremely immersive when you do it via voice. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just that difference, right? Instead of pushing buttons to give automated responses, and on VetSim, right, you just get access to a lot more real-world procedures, like because people are more, you could say, hardcore, lah. Yeah. I wouldn't have known about the South China Sea flight level allocation scheme, SAR watch, Australia procedures for departing from uncontrolled airports. All these regional procedures, uh, procedures specific to certain airports, certain regions, and the way that they operate and they sequence air traffic, the way they operate their facility, it's very diverse all over the world. And when you speak to actual local controllers, when you fly, you hear their accents, you hear the way they manage the traffic, right? It's a completely different experience from pushing buttons on your screen. Versus actually pushing that push to talk button and having your voice transmit over the frequency. Before 2021, when I was using Infinite Flight and Explain Mobile, my knowledge of aviation, I would say, was moderate. I basically knew how things work. Like I knew that you need to get pushbacks, start engines, taxi out. You cannot get air traffic control clearance. Take off. You don't use 100% thrust. It's derated thrust. You need takeoff landing clearance. Basic stuff like that. I was aware roughly, but I was a sort of user that tried to do things as realistically as possible within the confines of the simulator. So I'm using, SimBrief to do the flight plan, use its and stars, operate the lights realistically, respect, speed constraints. And these are things that pretty much that's the limit at which you can do things realistically in infinite flight. Yeah. And what I've found, right, is that if you're hardcore in a mobile flight sim, you'll likely be hardcore too in desktop flight sims. And this means that when you make that transition to a desktop flight sim with VATSIM, with a high fidelity add-on, referencing proper real-world airline SOPs, right, which you can replicate to the T, it is going to be a whole new level. And I keep saying that because it's really true. When I got into desktop flight sim, I can say that my knowledge previously I say was moderate, right? I can say that my knowledge more than tripled in both breadth and depth. And triple is a conservative estimate. The environment just encourages you to learn and explore much more. And this is, by the way, a common thing not just in flight simmer, but in real life. Environment is very important in shaping development. Now, my first payware aircraft was the Phoenix A320, and that's where I learned how to properly operate in Airbus. You know, DIFSRIP, the acronym for programming, setting up the MCDU, proper rotation technique, 2.5 to 3 degrees per second, manage modes, land review from this, vert review from this, anchor time points, secondary flight plan. All of this you won't get in infinite flight. And nowadays, right, when I visit a real world cockpit, which I try to always do, the experience is just so much more enriching, and I'm always struck by how familiar things look. Like that Airbus MCDU, it literally is the exact same. Bar the nav database because they have different naming conventions and some extra ACAS functions. When I get on 737, I'll actually look out for, oh, okay, you guys got auto start switch, that position instead of off. Auto probe heat, oh, you got the yaw gamper gauge, you got cancel recall button. You got, oh, this aircraft has short fuel performance because you can tell by watching how the spoilers deploy on touchdown. Oh, you got performance improvement package, you know, and you sit in the aircraft, you sit in the cabin, you hear that high pitch running, you be like, okay, electric hydraulic pumps. Okay, these are the fuel pumps. Okay. Oh, okay, packs, engine 2 started and then packs came on. Oh, they're doing isolated engine start, isolated pack start, sorry. Oh, the lights just flickered, bus transfer, switches were flicked. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but this just brings you so much closer to real world aviation. And it opens up an entire host of material for you that previously would have been totally irrelevant and boring. Like, for example, the 737 tech site or PPROOT, Professional Pilots Rumor Network. This is where they discuss really technical details about the aircraft. And it's actually interesting and valuable and relevant material for you. The QRH, FCOM, FCTM, air, aircraft maintenance manual, all these becomes relevant, right? And you can actually read it and actually find it interesting. You understand it. And the age-old question, yes, I do believe that I can confidently set up a real A320 777 737 for an ILS auto land. Yeah, and talk to air traffic control. Because once you know how to operate the seat controls, which is actually a whole different, it's something that you have to know, and something you probably won't know if you have been flying from your home desktop. And once you know where to push the talk button, it's pretty much exactly the same as in your sim. You just push the same buttons, don't disconnect the autopilot, and you get it down safely. So personally for me, I'll be studying an aviation related course in university, and I intend to work in the aviation industry after graduation. So all of this is very relevant to me. Okay, if you want just one, flight sim for entertainment, enjoyment, of course, there are other considerations. But if you're like me, you want to get as close as you can to the real deal, and there's no looking back. There really is no other option. It's a no-brainer. Mobile flight sims, they're good in their own right, but in my 8 years or so of using them, I never really realized how much I was missing out on. It's that kind of thing where you will be satisfied with what you currently have. But once you take that leap of faith, once you step out, once you look at what else is on offer, you don't look back. So, what was the switch like for me? Okay, so some culture shocks. So, first thing, you're gonna realize very steep learning curve. Okay, uh, desktop flight sims are very heavily add-on dependent, and they need proactive management from you. So coming from Infinite Flight, where you just push the master battery, select APU to start, and you're ready to start engines. Even the relatively simple A320, a properly simulated one on the desktop flight sim, will be quite the beast to learn if you want to do it properly. But the good thing is there are tons and tons of tutorials online. Many of them by real-world A320 pilots, yeah, or whatever aircraft type you want to learn. Will show you the ropes right from scratch. Simple, easy to learn, easy to understand. And also, aside from learning the aircraft, you need to set up your graphic settings, your control curves for your hardware, model matching. It's something that you have to go through once for every new sim install, and you also need to get used to the user interface, how things work. Yeah, community folder, all your add-ons go there, packages folder. You just need to understand how the ecosystem works for desktop flight sims. And you need to be proactive in diagnosing and fixing issues yourself because there are many more avenues for things to go wrong. For example, an outdated GPU driver, or you need to tweak some XML files using Notepad. You can expect to do these things occasionally if there are bugs in the software or you want to improve something. But the good thing is that this comes as a consequence of a very open ecosystem, and where you can literally change everything in the sim and your add-on, right? The sounds, the color of the sky, the scenery, the planes, the behavior of the wing flex, the pushback, simulated passenger boarding. The sky is the limit. You just need to do some tweaking yourself, so a bit of tech savviness on your part is necessary. If you're a plug and play kind of person, yeah, you will probably enjoy it as well, but you need to do some tweaking yourself if you want to get the best experience possible. The second thing is cost. So let's say you get Infinite Flight. Okay, currently Infinite Flight, the app itself is free. So in Singapore dollars, which is what I'll be working with for all of this, is about 1.4 Sing dollars for $1. It's currently about $14 for a 1 month subscription to Infinite Flight. Okay, Explain, I believe they also use a subscription model. Base app is also free, but you need that subscription to access all the planes, access the global scenery, live weather, multiplayer, all this stuff. Yeah. So if let's say you get for 3 months a year, counting let's say you're a student, you have 3 months of holiday total every year, and you do so for 5 years consecutively. So that's 14 times 3, which is 42, and then times 5 years, right? That's $210 over 5 years. They're gonna spend on an Infinite Flight subscription. Use that same amount of money. The great thing about desktop flight simulation is that By and large, everything is pay once and you get it. Okay, there's some other subscription stuff like Navigraph, but by and large, products, right? You get it once, you get it forever. For example, the base SIM is $80. If that's MSFS, 80 Sing dollars. PMDG 737, you get the cheap one, it's about $50, $100 for the more expensive ones, and maybe a few add-on sceneries of your choice, ranging between 10 and 30 Sing dollars, depending on the quality and the size. Right? That amount of money is about $210. And the great thing is that you get these forever. They stay in your PC until you decide to fix them. Yeah, they may not be, updates that are issued forever. So they may issue updates for a couple years and then they stop. But it stays on your PC. That's a great thing. You don't ever lose access to it. And of course, the great thing about desktop flight sim is that there's an excellent freeware ecosystem, which is you pretty much don't have in mobile flight sim. Yeah, because people can tweak the files, they can create their own mods that are available for download from websites like flightsim.to, right? That are high quality, completely free. You don't need to spend any more money other than the base sim. And of course, um, okay, so the main thing that will really, in terms of cost, that will shock you, right? If you've never checked out the prices, is the price of the PC itself. Yeah, because some of us, we have phones, iPads, we use it, lying around, we can use it for the game, but the PC itself, right, will cost quite a lot, in the thousands. If you want a good one, because you want good performance to, enjoy the sim. But of course, PC, right? You don't just use it for simulation, right? You can use it for other stuff like Blender, day-to-day work. A powerful PC can help in many ways. So if you have the means, it's a very good investment. And lastly, I want to address the question: hey, there's nothing stopping all of the good stuff I mentioned from becoming present on an iPad, right? As computing power advances. Why not? Yeah, true. But you think about the development cost and the intended audience. If one platform provides so much more capability and the ability to develop and add on to the highest possible levels of fidelity, where would these devs go? Just put yourself in their shoes, right? Is it technically possible to see a PMDG product on your iPad one day? Maybe possible, but once you factor in the economics, it's very unlikely to happen. In conclusion, if you have the means, give desktop sims a try because you never know until you've experienced it firsthand. I say that earnestly from personal experience. You can get MSFS for $1 just using the Xbox Game Pass trial, and if you cancel before 14 days, you can actually get a full refund. For Explain, there's a free demo version you can download, but it limits you to 15 minutes of flight time. But you can use these to test add-ons and other settings. Eventually, though, for MSFS, I suggest if you intend to buy the game, get it from Steam and buy everything from the developer directly, the developers, so third-party add-ons, instead of using the marketplace unless it's absolutely necessary. And if Explain, you need some good mods to get you started. So just search like Explain 12 good add-ons on your search engine of choice. Uh, for airliners, there's the Flyby A32NX for MSFS, free of charge, completely free. Zibo 737 for Explain, also completely free. Right, both are good quality, free, and very good for starting to learn airliners. Uh, and of course, if you want any tips or questions, leave them below. I'm happy to help. And most importantly, no matter the sim of your choice and platform, have fun.